The rain had no mercy that night. It fell in thick, relentless sheets, soaking the empty road, blurring the streetlights, and turning the quiet bus stop into a lonely island of concrete and shadows. Most people had already rushed home, escaping the storm, but one small figure remained unmoving on the bench. She sat stiffly, her back straight, her hands clenched around a worn white cane, her eyes covered with a dark cloth to protect them from the rain. She didn't flinch when thunder cracked overhead. She didn't look around when cars passed. She simply waited, as if time itself had forgotten her. When Arif Cole, a tired single father on his way home from a late shift, noticed her, something deep inside him tightened in a way he couldn't ignore. Before the story goes any further, if you believe that kindness can change lives and that everyone deserves a second chance, please take a moment to like this video, comment your thoughts, share it with someone who needs hope, and subscribe to Heartline Tales. Your support helps stories like this reach hearts that need them the most. Arif hadn't planned on stopping. His son was waiting at home with a neighbor, and the day had already drained every ounce of energy from him. Since his wife's passing 3 years earlier, life had become a constant balance between responsibility and exhaustion. He worked long hours as a warehouse supervisor, came home to help with homework, cooked simple meals, and tried to be both mother and father to an 8-year-old boy who still asked questions about heaven before falling asleep. Yet something about the girl at the bus stop refused to leave his mind. The way her dress clung to her from the rain, the way her shoulders trembled slightly from the cold, and most of all, the way no one else seemed to notice her existence. He parked his car nearby and watched for a moment, expecting someone to come running back, apologizing, explaining. No one did. Minutes passed. Another bus drove by without stopping. The girl didn't react. That was when Arif realized she wasn't waiting for a bus she could see. She was waiting for something she had been told would come. Stepping out into the rain, Arif felt foolish for caring so much, but he couldn't turn away. As he approached, he noticed the bruises on her arm, half hidden beneath the sleeve of her thin green dress. They weren't fresh, but they were recent enough to tell a story that didn't need words. Her shoes were cracked, her hair damp and tangled, and a small cloth bag rested beside her feet, tied with a fraying string. She looked young, barely in her early 20s, yet the weight she carried made her seem older, worn down by disappointments far beyond her years. Arif gently sat at a distance, careful not to startle her. He noticed how she tilted her head slightly, listening, sensing his presence without seeing him. The rain softened, turning into a light drizzle, but the silence between them felt heavy. Arif thought of his son, of how terrified he would be if he were ever left alone like this, and that thought sealed his decision. He couldn't leave her there. He learned her name was Mira Vance through careful patience and gentle reassurance. She had been blind since childhood after a fever took her sight when she was 5. Since then, life had never been kind. Her parents had died when she was a teenager, and relatives passed her from house to house like a burden no one wanted to carry. Recently, an aunt promised her a chance at work in another town, claiming there was a family willing to help her. Mira had believed her, trusting the voice that sounded warm and hopeful. That trust ended at the bus stop. The aunt had guided her to the bench, told her to wait, and walked away with Mira's documents, money, and last thread of security. As the truth unfolded, Arif felt a familiar ache, the same one he felt when life had taken his wife too soon. He recognized that hollow feeling of abandonment, the quiet panic of realizing you were truly alone. Mira had been sitting there for hours, unsure if the bus had already come, unsure if the rain would ever stop, unsure if anyone in the world still remembered her existence. Arif brought her to his car, wrapping his jacket around her shoulders. The drive home felt longer than usual, not because of traffic, but because of the thoughts racing through his mind. He had no plan. He had bills, responsibilities, and a child depending on him. Yet he also had a conscience that refused to let him abandon someone who had already been abandoned too many times. When they reached his modest home, Mira hesitated at the doorway, her fingers brushing the wall as if seeking permission from the space itself. Arif prepared a simple meal while she sat quietly at the table, her hands folded, her posture tense, as though she expected to be told to leave at any moment. His son, Kian, emerged from his room, sleepy-eyed and curious. Instead of fear, he showed gentle curiosity, greeting Mira with a shy warmth that surprised Arif. That moment, small and ordinary, carried more healing than either of them realized. The days that followed were not easy. Mira struggled with guilt, constantly apologizing for taking up space, for eating food, for breathing too loudly. Arif struggled with doubt, wondering if he was doing the right thing, if he was risking too much. But something changed in the house. The silence that once echoed with grief softened. Mira began helping in small ways, folding laundry by touch, listening carefully to Kian read aloud, offering encouragement that came from a place of deep understanding. She had known loneliness, and she recognized it in the boy's quiet moments. One evening, while organizing the contents of Mira's small cloth bag to see what little she had left, Arif discovered something unexpected. Inside was a neatly folded letter and a small medal. The letter revealed the truth that left him stunned. Mira wasn't just a blind girl abandoned by family. She was a former scholarship student at a school for the visually impaired, once recognized for her exceptional memory and ability to teach others through sound and storytelling. The medal was from a regional program that trained blind students to become educators and counselors. Her aunt hadn't just abandoned her. She had deliberately stolen Mira's identity papers to access benefits meant for her. Arif realized then that Mira wasn't helpless. She had been robbed of opportunity, not ability. With help from a local social worker and a legal aid office, Arif assisted Mira in reporting the theft and starting the long process of reclaiming her documents. It took time, patience, and setbacks that tested all of them. There were moments Mira cried quietly at night, moments Arif questioned whether he had the strength to keep fighting alongside her. But every step forward, no matter how small, felt like reclaiming a piece of dignity. Months passed. Mira began training at a community center, teaching children with visual impairments how to navigate the world through sound and touch. Arif's home no longer felt temporary to her. It felt safe. Kian laughed more. Arif smiled more. They were no longer three broken individuals sharing space. They were becoming something that resembled a family. Just before the ending of this story, take a moment to comment below. Share where you're watching from, or tell us who this story reminded you of. Your words mean more than you know. On a quiet evening, much like the night they first met, rain tapped softly against the windows. Mira sat by the table, listening as Kian excitedly talked about school, while Arif prepared dinner. The pain of the past hadn't vanished, but it no longer defined them. Mira had found purpose. Arif had found renewed faith and kindness. Kian had found someone who understood his loss without needing explanations. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that even in the darkest moments kindness can rewrite destinies, please like this video, share it, and subscribe to Heartline Tales. Your engagement helps keep these stories alive, reaching those who need hope the most. Sometimes, stopping for a stranger at a bus stop doesn't just save them. It saves you too.